Hey, Prime members, are you tired of ads interfering with your favorite podcasts? Good news! With Amazon Music, you have access to the largest catalog of ad-free top podcasts included with your Prime membership. To start listening, download the Amazon Music app for free or go to amazon.com/ad-free podcasts. That's amazon.com/ad-free podcasts to catch up on the latest episodes without the ads.
Did you know that parents rank financial literacy as the #1 most difficult life skill to teach? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app for families. With Greenlight, you can send money to kids quickly, set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on your kids' spending with real-time notifications. Kids learn to earn, save, and spend wisely. And parents can rest easy knowing their kids are learning about money with guardrails in place. Try Greenlight risk-free today at greenlight.com/getstarted. That's GREENLIGHT.com/getstarted.
Invincible was good. He's not here, so the talking about a pop culture reference before we open the door thing wouldn't really work. But Invincible, totally worth a watch if you get past all the violence and shit. Also, Mayor of Easttown, very good, definitely worth your time.
And then,
Tom, that is enough.
Cecil, it's just a story, right? You promise it's just a story?
Guys, what the hell is going on?
Tom is selling us the scariest story.
Yeah. His essay this week is about not eating.
Cecil, quiet, or she'll appear behind you and make you not eat.
No, she won't. You're just saying that to scare me, Eli.
She will.
No, she won't.
Jeez, Tom, it's supposed to be one hell of a story. How far are you into it? What I missed?
Oh, so far, we start with Once Upon a Time, and then trailed off.
Yeah, I guess that tracks.
But it's going to be a time without food, Noah.
Yeah. Whose food will he finish, Noah?
Hello and welcome to Citation Needed, the podcast where we choose a subject, read a single article about it on Wikipedia, and pretend we're experts, because this is the internet. That's how it works now. I'm Eli Bosnick, and I'll be taking very careful care of you tonight. But I'll need some fellow inmates. First up, two men for whom a starvation diet means missing second breakfast, Cecil and Tom.
Hey, I can't help my bulk cycle is on a geologic time frame. What the fuck, man?
Hey, it's not a cycle. It's a lifestyle, actually. Thank you.
Exactly.
And also joining us tonight, Alternative Medicine's alternative, No Illusions.
At this point, I have a hard time not just being pissed off at people named Herb.
Before we begin tonight, we'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons. Patrons, without you, like the subject of today's essay, we'd starve to death. In the not on purpose way, which I think we can all agree is worse than the on purpose way. If you'd like to learn how to join the ranks of people preventing us from not eating, be sure to stick around till the end of the show. And with that out of the way, tell us, Cecil, what person, place, thing, concept, phenomenon, or event will we be talking about today?
Today we're going to be talking about Starvation Heights.
All right, and Tom, you were trying to prove to a waiter that they were committing a crime by not letting you and Heath into a freezer with a fork and a lit torch. Are you ready to tell us what you learned?
I am. I'm hungry to tell you this story.
Oh, okay.
Very good.
So tell us, Tom, what was Starvation Heights?
All right, so this story is one of those stories that I thought about before I decided to tell it. Because this is a fucked up story, to be sure, and it's tragic, but not tragic in the sort of bumbling, oops, I unplugged the lake sense that stories here often contain.
It's our bread and butter, yeah.
Is that radium you got there? Neat. Let me see.
I bet this would be a great hand lotion.
Rub it on my butthole.
Much of the tragedy in this episode is intentional, and I don't mean to glamorize the cruelty by telling the story, but the story also contains really timely warnings about alternative medicine and even touches on the dangers of abuse within a legal guardianship. Both topics which are very much part of the national conversation right now, as much as they were 100 years ago. This is the story of Starvation Heights, the fasting-based sanitarium and murder factory operated by Linda Hazard in the early 1900s.
Okay, I just want to say at the outset, anyone who thinks not feeding you makes you more sane has never met my wife. So Debunked.
I also want to emphasize that the show that did the wacky comedy over the history of the Taiping Rebellion now has a "we're not sure about this one" intro, so I be as nervous as you want to be.
So Linda Hazard was born in 1867 in Carver County, Minnesota. She was one of 8 children. As a child, Linda complained of a number of ailments of the stomach, and it being the late 1800s, both diagnoses and treatments were, to be very generous, clumsy. Linda was taken to a local doctor and she was prescribed mercury. Of course, with the benefit of hindsight, it's fairly easy to see how this went poorly. Mercury is, of course, toxic as all hell, but in the late 1800s, it was a fairly common therapy for a distressingly large number of complaints. There was a general feeling at the time of better out than in, which, if you bought into, would make mercury make a hell of a lot of sense, actually. Mercury ingestion has a host of horrifying effects, depending on the dosage and formulation, but chief among these effects was that it made you violently discharge anything you might have anywhere even remotely in the neighborhood of your stomach.
Yeah.
For centuries, actually, promoting explosive diarrhea in patients was considered not a distressing symptom, but a sign that things were looking up. After all, the more you emptied yourself, the more of the supposed toxins and poisons you were ejecting from your system.
So what you're saying, Tom, is I was the healthiest person anyone knew in 1866.
Whenever I shoot silly string out of my asshole, I'm never thinking, man, I'm glad that happened. Wow.
Well, clearly you don't hate making small talk as much as I do.
So for years, Linda was given calomel. It's a very common mercury-based medicinal remedy. And for years, she was catastrophically, violently ill. And I bring this up because I think it actually provides some valuable context for this story, both for Linda and for her patients. If your medical worldview is based on the idea that there are toxins accumulating in your body and that the elimination of those toxins would bring the body back to right, then it actually makes all the sense in the world to induce elimination. And from there, extended fasting is really only a hop, skip, and a leap to conclusions away. It's very likely, too, that Linda herself associated the feeling of emptiness, where she had nothing left to purge, with her feelings of health. While that is speculative, what is known for sure is that Linda began to fall for a very trendy alternative medical practice, which was popular among progressive circles promoting the health effects of fasting. This obsession with fasting tied neatly in with the toxin elimination idea and would come to define Linda's life and end many others.
Okay, guys. Origin story title idea: The Pukes of Hazard. What do you think?
I feel like there's
The
a
Brown
star-
Daisy Dukes.
The Brount of Monte Cristo. I don't have it.
While she was reading up on the quackery of fasting, Linda's life moved on in other ways. At 18, she got married, had 2 children, though she discovered that her ambition and desire to spread the gospel of fasting far outweighed her desire for family life. In 1898, Linda left her husband and her 2 kids and headed off to Minneapolis to open a practice promoting her fasting cure. This was extraordinary for a couple of reasons. First, it was practically unheard of for women in the late 1800s to leave their husbands and children to move away and start a career. Second, Linda wasn't a licensed anything, actually. Yeah, no
Nice.
licenses. But it was 1898, so that wasn't the barrier to entry into the medical field that you might imagine it would be. Supposedly, Linda did have some training as an osteopathic nurse, but she hung out her shingle claiming to be a doctor. And since doctors were not, at this time, strictly regulated, this didn't even raise an eyebrow. The late 1800s was pretty much the heyday for sanitariums and patent medicines, and anyone who wanted to could pretty much offer medical services without much in the way of practical or legal barriers.
Yeah, now you have to go to the trouble of making a meme in Photoshop. It's
Yeah.
much harder these days.
Right. No, I'm sorry. I challenge anybody to look at Gwyneth Paltrow's net worth and tell me some other age was the heyday for patent medicine.
Right.
Linda began her fasting treatments right off. And right off, the consequences were predictably awful. Now, like Linda, I am not a medical doctor, but I can tell you that if you don't eat food for a long enough period of time, you fucking die from starvation.
Yep.
You do. That's
It's
true.
a thing. In 1902, Linda's divorce finalized, as did the last days of her first patient to succumb to the inevitable effects of not eating food for a very long time.
No, that'll get you.
The coroner was able to determine that the patient died of starvation, likely from the gaunt, starved look that starved people tend to
Yeah.
have. and he
Seems
urged
obvious.
prosecutors to have Linda arrested. However, and this is bonkers, since Linda wasn't actually licensed to practice medicine, she couldn't be arrested for doing a bad job practicing medicine.
Fucking what?
Ergo, she had not broken the law.
She's out of the game. She's in her head.
Also, we'll see this time and again in her story, convicting someone of making you not eat food when food is available to you was really difficult for prosecutors to get behind at this time. Everyone knew that Linda was responsible. They just couldn't figure out how she was legally culpable. Oh, and then also Linda stole the dead lady's jewelry.
Jesus Christ.
There it is.
What they needed was some sort of FDA that could officially not do anything to stop her. So as long as we don't live back then, right?
They walk in, she's got a fishing pole with a string and a banana on it. She's pulling it away from They come in, she quickly hides it behind her back like nothing's happening.
Now, around this time, Linda met and married the love of her life, a West Point graduate named Samuel Christman Hazard. There were only a few minor problems.
Okay, was one of them that his name was a strange Lovian level acronym for this story? Hazard?
No. First, Samuel had ruined his military career by stealing money from the army, which got him kicked right the fuck out of the army. He was also a notorious lech and a habitual drunkard. Oh, and he was also married to 2 other women.
Ooh.
Probably. Definitely, though, at least one other woman. This did not dissuade Sam or Linda from tying the knot, however, and Samuel even introduced Linda to his most recent kind of former wife as his wife. This introduction of Linda as Samuel's new and current third wife did not sit well with Samuel's second, also current recent wife, who was also the daughter of a prominent local lawmaker. They had Samuel arrested for bigamy, and he was thrown in jail for 2 years. None of this did anything to dampen the flames between Linda and Samuel, and they stayed together throughout his prison term, after which the pair left Minnesota and moved to Washington.
All right. Well, I'd say there's nothing to a love story between 2 con men, but Ed and Lorraine Warren just got their 3rd fucking Conjuring movie. So while I put together a pitch deck, let's pause for a little ditty I like to call Apropos of Nothing. Doctor, thank you so much for coming.
Of course. I'm very sorry to hear about your mother.
Yes, the doctor tried everything she could.
Sorry, the doctor?
Oh, yes, Dr. Linda. Have you met her?
No, I don't think I have.
Holy fucking shit, do not fucking go in there. Woof! Whoo! Whoo! Let me tell you, that fucking mercury ran through me like the finish line of the 2013 Boston Marathon.
Oh, too soon. You must be Dr. Linda.
Yeah, you could fucking call me that.
Okay, you are a doctor, though, right?
Oh, you could call me Dr. Linda? What's with all the fucking questions, huh?
Dr. Linda, about Mother's condition.
Oh, yeah, she had a real fucking bad case of eating too much fucking fooditis.
I'm sorry, eating too much fucking fooditis?
Yeah, it's a new fucking disease. You probably ain't heard of it. I did my best, but she must have fucking snuck some fucking crackers or something, and then she fucking died, you know?
Mother did love her crackers.
Yeah, well, anyway, I better fucking start taking off her jewelry, you know? Gotta get back to the lab and measure them for fucking cracker deposits or whatever.
Oh, okay, excuse me. I'm sorry, but enough is enough.
What do you mean, Doctor?
Yeah, what do you fucking mean?
I mean, we're splitting that jewelry 50-50, or I came here for nothing.
Fine.
Can I have some too?
No.
Nah.
And we're back. When we left off, Linda and Samuel were sitting in a tree. Tell us, Tom, what happened next?
Well, Linda and Samuel settled in a town nearby Seattle called Olalla. Linda's intention was to start her own sanitarium on a 40-acre parcel of land she had purchased. But first, she was going to need to start her health unfood business anew. Lucky for her, the idea of fasting your way to better health was not a hard sell. Local freethinkers and theosophists embraced Linda's notions, and she quickly gained both notoriety and patience. Here, Linda's fasting cure claimed its first Washington victim, a woman named Daisy Maud Hugland. Daisy entered Linda's care and began her treatment, which included a near total fast that lasted 50 days. Daisy died of starvation at the age of 38. Interestingly, she left behind a 3-year-old son named Ivar Hagland, who would go on to significant success with his restaurant chain Ivar's, a chain which has, in a full circle moment, fed millions.
Huh.
Yeah. You know how in the In-N-Out burgers, there's John 3:16 on the wrapper?
Mhm.
Ivar's has "Fuck You, Linda Hazard" on there. You
Oh,
gotta
wow.
look when you open it.
Interesting. I never noticed that.
Still in business. More and more patients continue to come to Linda for treatment, and more of them, surprisingly, fail to get better by denying their bodies of the essential nutrients it requires to perform necessary biological and chemical functions. The pattern was pretty much the same. Paying for the privilege, Linda would intake a patient, diagnose them with some nonsense which only her ministrations could cure, and then she would starve them.
Sheesh. Man, even Catholic residential schools would give you the occasional cracker.
Oh, no.
Oh, shit.
And it's not like people in the area weren't aware that this was happening. After her treatment killed a local civil engineer, the Seattle Daily Times ran a headline which read, quote, "Woman MD," and MD is in quotes, "kills another patient."
Another.
Look, she might be a quack, literally torturing people to death, but she's a lady, and that's what I won't stand for.
In the early 1900s, was there like a group of scientists deep in a lab busy inventing linking cause and effect? They haven't fucking got around to
Hold on a
Erlenmeyer
second.
flasks full of cause.
Still, patients kept signing up for Linda's treatments, and many of them died. Though now Linda was also figuring out that her starving patients were prime targets for financial abuse as well. Once trust and control was deeply established, Linda often also took control of her patients' finances, asking them for more and more money, and indeed even getting some of them to sign over control of their bank accounts to her.
Wow. Can you imagine being bankrupted by your medical care? Jesus, the past was so
no.
barbaric.
Oh,
So awful back then.
Oh, no. You know, in the picture, the after picture and the advertisements for Linda's business, they just had a snake laced through the eye holes of the skull. That's what it was.
The only death which deviated from the starvation pattern was that of 29-year-old aristocrat Eugene Stanley Wakeland. Eugene was the son of a British lord, and he met a quicker end than Linda's other victims. Eugene's body was found on the Hazard property with a bullet wound to the head. The original thought was that Eugene had committed suicide, but later investigators believed that he was killed by the Hazards when they discovered that despite being aristocracy, he was also broke.
What the hell, guys? Your thing already kills people. You couldn't wait?
Right?
You're actively murdering him right now.
Yeah, but not for free. I mean,
Yeah, it's not worth the expense of not feeding him anything for a while. Okay. Health authorities were powerless to stop this murderous charlatan. While Linda was unlicensed and therefore safe from prosecution when in Minnesota, this is fucking bonkers. Washington was different. In Washington, Linda was actually licensed. There was a law
Good.
which allowed her to be licensed absent any meaningful credentials as an alternative medicine doctor specializing in fasting.
wow.
Not good.
Since she was a licensed fasting specialist, and since her patients were willing participants in their own starvation, authorities were helpless to intervene. When former legislator Louis Rader began wasting away under the direction of Linda, health inspectors at the hotel she was using tried to convince him to leave before it was too late. Louis, a firm believer in Linda's starvation treatment, weakly refused to leave, and then Linda spirited Louis away in the middle of the night to a new location so authorities couldn't take him away. Louis died a few days later, weighing less than 100 pounds.
I'm sorry, Mr. Sentient Pork Chop. I just need a few more days of treatment.
Yeah, she spirited him away on it's like the Underground Railroad, except that like the destination is the underground.
Yeah.
You know?
And being railroaded. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
In February of 1911, two very wealthy sisters, Dorothea and Claire Williamson, met with Linda in her office in Seattle. This meeting would start the chain of events which would end in tragedy and ultimately end also in Linda's arrest. The two Williamson sisters were well-known hypochondriacs, and they were also big believers in alternative medicine.
No.
The two don't seem to go hand in hand at all. They had traveled extensively and had land holdings across the US, Canada, and the UK, but they were also shielded by their extreme wealth from many of the harsher realities of the world. When they heard about Linda and her beautiful sanitarium she intended to build, the sisters eagerly sought her out, dreaming of a sun-dappled Pacific Northwest retreat and all the care and attention they needed.
Okay, so I get that somebody has to start them, but I'm pretty leery of anybody who dreams of having their own sanitarium, okay? That's fucked up.
Linda was all too happy to take on the care of the Williamson sisters, though she didn't yet have her sanitarium up and running. Instead, she began treating them in a hotel in Seattle, supervised by one of Linda's nurses. Here, the sisters endured the full brunt of Linda's treatments. See, Linda's protocol wasn't confined only to intense fasting. Linda also prescribed and herself performed daily massages. Now, I like a massage probably as much or more than the next guy, but these massages were really something else. Linda would pummel her patients, not just on the back, but on the stomach and on the forehead.
That doesn't sound...
Well, forehead punching.
It doesn't sound like a massage.
It doesn't sound like a massage. Patients were left deeply bruised and battered, which in their weakened state from eating nothing but 2 cups of thin tomato broth day after day left their patients more and more vulnerable. Linda also forced her patients to have daily enemas, which sometimes lasted for hours and could involve as much as 12 quarts of fluid.
Wow. Jesus.
Yeah, these enemas were also terrifically painful and taxing on the body.
Yeah, these sisters are just flying around the room like someone let go of a sculpting balloon and Linda's standing in the center going, yes, health, I'm a good doctor. This is good.
Whether it was the goal or not, certainly one of the effects of these treatments was to render the patient helpless and confused. As the patient's mental and physical health deteriorated, they were isolated, and Linda made sure she was the only person in position to offer them care and succor. Helpless, the Williamsons were both dependent on and also deeply bonded to Linda. And so when she began making inquiries into their real estate holdings, the sisters were in no position to protect themselves. Quickly, Linda secured signed documents from the starving, deteriorating sisters, deeding over land and assets to Linda upon their death.
Yeah, well, and let's be clear that their mental health was deteriorating from I guess you're beating the shit out of me for medical reasons, level, right? That was the starting point.
At some point, and it's not clear exactly how, though it was likely through a sympathetic nurse, one of the Williamson sisters sent a brief and cryptic telegraph to Margaret Conway, the sister's childhood nanny. Though she was all the way in Sydney, Australia when she received the telegraph, Margaret immediately set sail to Washington, hoping to save the sisters from whatever had befallen them.
I'll be there as soon as I can, girls. See you in 3.5 months.
Yeah,
right. Shit.
It actually took almost exactly a month to the day. And alas, for Claire Williamson, help had come too late. Weighing just 50 pounds when she died, Mary finally succumbed to the beating, the starvation, and the enemas. And Dorothea was not much better off. In fact, when Margaret was taken to see the body of Claire was so wasted that it wasn't until Margaret saw the still living Dorothea that she understood who they were and what exactly she was seeing.
Wow.
Dorothea's mental health had deteriorated badly at this point as well, and she was far too unwell to speak up for herself, make decisions, or understand the gravity of her situation. And at this point, Margaret tried to take Dorothea from Linda, but Linda refused. While in her care and helpless to do otherwise, the Williamson sisters signed over their rights to Linda as guardian. Then, as now, once a guardianship is established, a person essentially loses all of their normally inviolable civil rights, and the guardian has complete autonomy over all aspects of their lives.
Hashtag free Britney.
Exactly. Margaret stayed with Dorothea and tried to slip additional foodstuff into the thin tomato broth that Dorothea received every day. While she was at the hotel, 2 other skeletal patients begged Margaret to save them, claiming they were prisoners.
And she was like, I'm really just here for her. I came all the way from Australia, so...
Isn't this under your former nanny, though? I feel like it's not my problem.
Margaret, unable to secure Dorothea's freedom on her own, snuck off the property and traveled as quickly as possible to Portland, Oregon, where Dorothea's uncle lived. Margaret, with uncle now in tow, again demanded the release of Dorothea, and again the Hazards refused, now claiming that Dorothea was not free to go until she had settled her $2,000 bill.
$2,000 back in the day money, Jesus.
Back in the fucking 1911.
Wow.
Yep. The uncle paid the ransom, and Dorothea was freed, weighing only 60 pounds when she was rescued.
Jeez.
Well, I'm just saying, though, I've seen people pay a lot more for way less effective weight loss treatment, so it's just sad.
Even after Dorothea's escape, local authorities did not initially agree to arrest and prosecute Linda, citing a lack of funds for a trial and prosecution of this scale. Dorothea, having begun to regain her wits as well as her health, offered to foot the bill for the trial. And in August of 1911, Linda was arrested.
The original version of Lady Justice is just a statue of her shrugging with her pockets turned out. Oh, it's not my problem.
I need $2,000 of 1911 money, actually.
All right, now stop me if this sounds at all familiar. When she was arrested, Linda claimed that she was being arrested not because she was a murderer and thief, but because the traditional medical establishment was afraid that she had uncovered a treatment which rendered their methods, medicines, and expertise all worthless. This was, as she told it, not a story of murder, but a story of powerful medical institutions crushing underfoot the healing power of alternative medicine.
Yep. All we need is a boat in Andrew Wakefield, and the cycle is complete.
Despite many ardent supporters, the jury didn't buy that shit. Linda was convicted of manslaughter. Incredibly, while awaiting her sentencing, Linda continued her starvation treatment therapy, and 2 more patients died in her care. Linda was sentenced to and served 2 years for manslaughter, despite at least 12 people having been starved to death while under her treatment. And after serving the same term that her husband had received for bigamy, the 2 hightailed it to New Zealand.
I was wondering why those hobbits looked so emaciated when we went. That makes sense. Okay.
He was arrested for bigamy. She was arrested for too little of me. There you go.
That's such a good joke. We need a statue. We need a statue for that joke.
Now, once in New Zealand, Linda again set up shop as a physician. Here, she wrote a book on the fasting cure, which, despite her notoriety and the publicity of her trial, was wildly successful.
What?
In fact, guys, it is so successful that you can still buy this book.
What?
You can buy this book right now on Amazon, and also, unironically, in many natural healing bookstores. This book is still available for sale. After making a ton of money selling her book, Linda moved in 1920 back to Olalla, Washington, and now fully financed, opened her long-awaited sanitarium at Wilderness Heights. There, Hazard continued to starve people to death at her sanitarium, and locals darkly referred to Wilderness Heights as Starvation Heights after several patients were found emaciated and wandering out of the facility begging for help.
Oh, yeah, that lady up on the hill tortures people to death. But don't worry, we got together as a town and we gave her business a mean nickname.
And not even a good one, right? Like, come on, guys, get creative. Starvation? Give me a fucking break.
Incredibly, Linda's sanitarium operated until 1935 when it burned down. Not long after, Linda herself began to feel unwell. Taking her own medicine, Linda followed her advice and began a fast herself. And that fast ultimately claimed her life. Now, I know this story is just gruesome as all hell, but I didn't tell it because it's titillating. I tell it because here we sit nearly 100 years later, and we are still talking about these exact cures.
Yeah.
We are still supporting and enabling systems which allow the same quackery and fraud to permeate society and prey on those who are ill. And we are still stripping wealthy young women of their civil rights under the guise of guardianship in order to financially abuse them. I'm telling this story not because it's old, but because it's not.
And if you had to summarize what you learned in one sentence, Tom, what would it be?
Again, I'm hungry. I think that's the
All right,
takeaway.
there we go.
Yep.
Back it on. Are you ready for the quiz?
Let's do it.
All right, speaking of hungry, given the popularity of Linda Hazard's starvation diets in the Olalla area, a number of restaurants eventually opened up to cater to her patients. Which was the most popular? A, What's a Burger? B, Airy Queen.
Airy Queen is great.
Because it's very...
I like it.
C, Hardly's.
Nice.
Or D, Starbucks.
Starbucks.
Oh,
that one
that's
does
so
it.
good.
That's
These are
a
all
good
so
one. That's a
good.
good one. I like that one.
But anyone that knows me knows the answer is clearly Starbucks.
Yes, that one was Lucinda's, by the way, and yes, D.
Very good.
correct.
Very good.
That's good. That's very, very good.
All right, Tom. What was the best dessert Starvation Heights served in the sanitarium cafeteria? A, death by not chocolate.
Your work here is done.
got it.
apparently.
That's it.
Very good.
That's it.
Very
I
good.
did it.
Wait, A?
Yeah, I did it.
Oh, fucking
Awesome.
nailed it. Nailed it.
All right, Tom, one more for you.
Yeah.
Linda Hazard's horrible starvation clinic movie is called A, Diet Hard, B, Skin and Bone Collector, C,
Fantastic.
American Slender, D,
No,
that's good
nice.
too.
Slim Fan, or E, The Fast and the Spurious.
Oh, nice.
All right. Well,
Doesn't-
even though it's not Christmas, I'm going with Diet Hard.
I don't know who won. I'm going to let Eli figure it out.
Those were all very excellent, but Heath wasn't here to do his puns. So he wins in absentia.
Okay.
And he wants Noah to write an essay. He told me in his heart. All right. Well, for Tom, Cecil, and Noah, I'm Eli Bosnick, thanking you for hanging out with us today. We'll be back next week. By then, Noah will be an expert on something else. Between now and then, you can listen to our podcasts in all the podcast places. And if you'd like to help keep this show going, you can make a per episode donation at patreon.com/citationpod. And when you do, we'll like you more. Or leave us a 5-star review everywhere you can. And if you'd like to get in touch with us, check out past episodes, connect with us on social media, or check the show notes, be sure to check out citationpod.com.